If you're training to be a doctor, you've got to look like a doctor, not like some scruffy labourer from the local building site. Jeans and an open-neck shirt are not suitable apparel. Leave at once and don't come back until you're properly dressed. Leslie Potts was in the outpatient clinic with the medical students, and one of the young men was learning the hard way that the consultant expected certain standards to be maintained. On this occasion, the consultant's reprimand was justified. Having been advised previously of the accepted code of dress, he should have known better. The student left red-faced and angry. "Now, let's get back to work," Mr. Potts said to the remaining students. "I've got a letter here from one of our local GPs. I'll read it to you, and then we'll go and see the patient. Dear Mr. Potts, Ann Nichols. This pleasant lady is the wife of a local farmer and has noticed a lump in her left breast. The lump is not painful and does not vary with her periods. 2 years ago she had a lump in the opposite breast which proved to be benign. I should be grateful if you would kindly see and advise on her further management. With thanks, David Evans." "No attempt to offer a diagnosis, you'll notice," commented Mr. Potts dryly as he beckoned Sister to show the patient in. "What else is missing from this letter?" He addressed the question to James Cassidy, a quiet, diligent student who, although highly intelligent and well-read, lacked self-confidence. Had James been in an examination hall with time to consider his response, he would have had no difficulty in suggesting the GP could have given the patient's age, stated how long the lump had been present, whether it was increasing in size, and half a dozen other pieces of information. But in the presence of the patient, a couple of nurses, and surrounded by his fellow students, and with Mr. Potts glaring at him, he became flustered. I'm not sure, sir," James stuttered. "Perhaps whether she's married or has a family?" "I told you she's married to a farmer. That was one of the few things the GP did say in his letter. My God, when I saw you standing there in your white coat, I thought you were training to be a doctor. But if you're part of the maintenance staff, come to do a bit of decorating, you should have waited until the clinic was over." He turned to one of the girls. "Miss Johnston, you look as if you're a bright young thing. For heaven's sake, help him out." Mr. Potts believed that such criticism stimulated the students to work harder, but it had the opposite effect. It crushed the confidence of the unfortunate victim, filled his fellow students with apprehension, and embarrassed the patient. Mrs. Nichols proved to be a pleasant woman, 36 years of age, who had kept her figure despite having 2 young children. Wearing a plain, thick woolen skirt and a chunky roll-necked sweater, and with her rosy cheeks and broad, calloused hands, her appearance spoke of a healthy life of hard work spent in the open air. In response to Mr. Potts's interrogation, she described how she had noticed the lump a few weeks earlier. It had gradually increased in size, but hadn't been painful. She acknowledged she did a lot of physical work, but had no recollection of having bumped or knocked her breast. Apart from the contraceptive pill, she was not taking any medication. "Nothing there to suggest what the problem might be," Mr. Potts remarked to the students before asking Sister to take Mrs. Nichols into one of the examination cubicles. In the privacy of the cubicle, Mrs. Nichols inquired whether she would be seen by Mr. Potts alone, or whether all the other young men with him would also be present. "If you like, I can ask him to see you on his own," Sister replied, though the inflection in her voice indicated she was not optimistic that she would be successful. In fact, her request fell on deaf ears. "I brought a number of young doctors with me today," Mr. Potts began when he entered the cubicle. "They do have to learn, you know, so that they will be able to look after patients with breast problems in the future. Now, if you would care to remove that dressing gown—" Hesitatingly, Mrs. Nichols did as she was told. For a moment, Mr. Potts stood back and regarded his patient. "Now, sit up straight and show me where this lump is." "Frugis ruris vero largi sunt," Mr. Potts remarked, a smile on his face, and with a sideways glance at his students. Some of the medical students who had studied Latin at school were amused, some were annoyed, but all were surprised at the remark. Non-Latin scholars looked puzzled. Mrs. Nichols, realizing that a personal comment about her appearance had been made, looked hurt, her eyes turning to Sister appealingly. Sister, also conscious that an inappropriate remark had been made, though not understanding what had been said, looked daggers at Mr. Potts, but said nothing.